Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the RE International Group PLC Annual General Meeting. Throughout this recorded meeting, attendees online will be in listen-only mode. Questions are encouraged and can be submitted at any time using the Q&A tab situated on the right-hand corner of your screen. Just please simply type in your question and press send. The company may not be in a position to answer every question received during the meeting itself. However, the company will review all questions submitted today and publish responses where it's appropriate. I'd now like to hand over to Chair Sangeeta Shah. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, everybody. I would like to welcome you to the annual general meeting of RA International Group, PLC. I am Sangeeta Shah, Chair of RA International. It is now 3 p.m. and as we have a quorum, I now formally declare the meeting open. Before turning to the formal part of the meeting, I would just like to mention a few housekeeping points. Please make sure that your phones are off or switch to silent mode. I'm pleased to inform you that the meeting today is being live streamed so that shareholders and other stakeholders who cannot be present can follow the proceedings of the meeting online. I would now like to take the extreme pleasure of introducing you to our board. Virtually joining us today is Alec Carstairs, Non-Exec Director and Chair of the Audit and Risk Committee. In attendance today is Philip Hayden-Slater, Non-Exec Director and Chair of the Remuneration Committee. Ian Henderson, the Non-Exec Director, our Non-Exec Director is actually joining us virtually too. I have supreme pleasure in introducing our Chief Executive Officer, Sarai Larfelt. I also have extreme pleasure in introducing to you Lars Larfelt, our COO. And finally, join us remotely today, our CFO, Andrew Bolter. For completeness, I'm also Chair of the ESG Committee. I would also like to introduce you to Nick Lindsay on behalf of Elemental Company Secretary Limited, our Company Secretary. I would now like to start the formal proceedings of this annual general meeting. The notice of the meeting, together with explanatory notes, was posted to shareholders on 25th of May 2022. Accordingly, the requisite notice of the meeting had been given. I therefore propose that the notice of the meeting should be taken as read. Should we take this as meeting read? Agree?
Yeah,
agree. Thank you. To accurately reflect the views of shareholders of the company, voting today will be done by way of a poll on each of the resolutions put to the meeting. This is seen as best practice as it gives all shareholders the opportunity to participate in the decision making of the company and have their votes recorded in proportion to the number of shares they hold. I'm appointing equity registrars to act as scrutineer. A summary of each resolution will be shown on the screen behind me, together with a breakdown of the proxy votes we have received before I put each resolution to the vote. As it will take some time to complete the poll procedure, the final results of the voting, including the proxy votes on each of the resolutions, will be announced through our regulatory information service and published on our website as soon as reasonably practical. When you have registered before the meeting today, each shareholder, proxy and corporate representative will have been issued with a poll card. If there is anyone who thinks they should have had a poll card but does not, please raise your hand and our registrars will attend to you, either your virtual hand or your physical hand, but given that shareholders can't, so...
I've already done.
You're already done. There you go. I'm proud to announce we have a very efficient shareholder present amongst us. I should mention that for those shareholders who have already lodged a proxy, they do not, of course, need to complete a poll card unless they want to change their vote. You have three options for each resolution: to vote for the proposed resolution, to vote against the proposed resolution, or to withhold a vote. A vote withheld is not a vote in law and will not be counted in the calculation of the proportion of the votes for or against a resolution. Will you please complete your poll card by ticking the appropriate box next to the relevant resolution depending on how you wish to cast your vote. Once all votes have been taken on the resolutions, please would you sign the poll card and put your completed poll card in one of the ballot boxes at the back of the room.
I've got a question on two of the comment question on two of the resolutions. Shall I do that now?
I'll cover them in due course.
Oh, you're going to do them one by one, all right.
Fantastic. Should you require any further assistance, our registrars will be happy to assist you. For those of you who have joined the meeting online, you will not be able to vote on the resolutions electronically and should have completed a form of proxy in advance of the meeting for your votes to be counted. In the interest of conducting a smooth meeting, I do not propose to take general questions prior to the resolutions. If there are any questions of voting procedures or subject matters specific to the resolutions, we will consider them now, but there will be an opportunity for full questions and answer sessions at the end of the meeting. So if they're specific to the
Specifically on the resolution, so resolution 10, the disapplication of placings and so forth. I voted against that because I think it's unfair on private shareholders. You're giving the shares, particularly if they're discounted, to institutions to make a profit on. So I would like you to consider private shareholders so we're not diluted when you do it, and include us. So that's resolution 10. Question on 11. I voted against this as well because market purchases, companies are generally not very good at buying their own shares because they tend to buy them up there and then they're down there. Under what circumstances would you buy company shares in the market?
Got it. Wait, may I propose that just in terms of actually just kind of discussing this, and we'll go through this, that we actually leave that question in terms of answering that specific resolution in terms of the circumstances to the end of the question and answer session.
Yeah, that's fine. So get rid of these resolutions, can't we?
Marvellous, fantastic. They're all very valid kind of questions to ask, and we note your kind of obviously kind of private interest in terms of where you are, and we respect them. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. It makes this much more fun. So turning now to the resolutions themselves, we will now proceed to vote on the resolutions which I formally propose to the meeting. The full text of each of the resolutions is set out in the notice of the meeting. Resolutions 1 to 9 are proposed as ordinary resolutions. For each of these resolutions to be passed, more than half of the votes cast must be in favour of those resolutions. Resolutions 10 and 11 are special resolutions, and for each of these, at least 3/4 of the votes must be cast in favour of that resolution. The first resolution, as put up on the screen, is to receive and adopt the annual reporting accounts for the year ended 31st December 2021. I now propose that the annual reporting accounts for the year ended 31st December 2021 be received and adopted. The screen shows a summary of the resolution and proxy figures. Will you please vote now? So, show. It's already in the poll card. Fantastic. So I duly acknowledge the votes as they've been cast. I now kind of canter on forwards to the resolutions relating to auditors. The board is recommending that Ernst & Young LLP be reappointed as the auditors of the company until the conclusion of the next AGM of the company, and the directors be authorised to fix their remuneration. Resolution 2 deals with their appointment, and Resolution 3 deals with their remuneration. I now propose that Ernst & Young be appointed as auditors. The screen, Yeah, the screen shows a summary of the resolution and proxy figures and the votes, because it was by poll, have been duly recognised. I then counter on to the kind of second element of the auditor's resolution, which is resolution number 3, and that is a proposal that the directors be authorised to fix the auditor's remuneration. The screen shows a summary of the resolution and proxy figures. I kind of hereby, and they're duly carried. I mean, all these resolutions, not percent, are duly carried. The resolutions 4 to 8 concern the re-election of directors, each of whom retires in accordance with corporate governance best practice recommendation, and being eligible are offering themselves for re-election at this annual general meeting. The board is recommending that each of the directors be re-elected as a director. I propose that Andrew Bolter be reappointed as a director. The screen shows a summary of the resolution and proxy figures, and inter alia that this is carried, that resolution is carried. I now propose that Philip Hayden Slater be re-elected as director. The screen shows a summary of the resolution and proxy figures and shows that that resolution has been duly carried. I now propose that Ian Ramsey Henderson be reappointed as a director. The screen shows a summary of the resolution and proxy figures, and therefore duly shows that this resolution is also carried. I now propose that Lars Ola Narfelt be reappointed as a director. The screen shows a summary of the resolution with the requisite proxy figures, and I'm pleased to inform you that the resolution has been carried. Finally, and certainly last but not least, I propose that Soraya Muriel, apologies, Narfelt be reappointed as a director. The screen shows a summary of the resolution and proxy figures, and I'm delighted to say that that resolution has also been carried. We now come on to resolution 9, which relates to granting directors the authority to issue shares. Before the directors are able to issue shares, they must first be authorised by the shareholders to do so. Market practice and the guidelines established by organisations representing institutional shareholders recommend the maximum number of shares that may be allotted under this authority is limited to 2/3 of the present issued shared capital. The board is recommending that a ceiling amount in relation to directors' authority to allot of 1/3, representing approximately 33%, at 5,785,858 is appropriate for the company. The authority will expire at next year's annual general meeting or on 30th of June 2023, whichever is the earlier. I now propose the directors be authorised to allot shares in accordance with the terms set out in the resolution. The screen shows a summary of the resolution and proxy figures, and even taking into account the polls, you will see that that resolution is now being duly carried. I now count on to the resolution relating to preemption provisions. These resolutions are now special resolutions requiring a 75% majority to be passed. Resolution 10 will give the directors authority to allot shares for cash, including the reissue of shares held in treasury, without first offering them to existing shareholders in proportion to their existing holding of shares, in keeping with market practice and institutional guidelines. The number of shares to which the proposed authority relates is limited to 20% of the current issued share capital. The authority will expire at next year's AGM or on 30th June 2023, whichever is the earlier. I now propose that the directors be authorised to disapply the statutory preemption provisions in accordance with the resolution. The screen shows a summary of the resolution and proxy figures. Sorry, mistake last time, but even including your kind of.
Well, I see I'm not alone with the against number.
Absolutely, duly noted. So it's a consensus there with a small minority indeed. That said, the resolution has been duly carried. We now come to resolution 11, the final resolution, which is again a special resolution, which will authorise the company to purchase some of its own ordinary shares on such terms and in such manner as the directors may from time to time determine. The purpose of this resolution is to authorise the company to purchase some of its own ordinary shares on such terms and in such manner as the directors may from time to time determine. The authority sought limits the maximum number of shares purchased to 17,357,574. The minimum and maximum prices that may be paid for the shares as set out in the resolution. I would like to emphasise that the directors would only purchase shares in the market if they are satisfied that any such purchase is in the best interest of shareholders. The authority will expire at next year's AGM or on 30th of June 2023, whichever is the earlier. I now propose that the company be authorised to purchase its own shares in accordance with the resolution. And again, kind of taken into account your own poll, I duly say that the screen shows the summary of the resolution proxy figures, and that resolution is indeed carried. This concludes the business of this meeting. The final result of this meeting will be announced to the market through our regulatory information service and posted on our website as soon as practicable. We now then move to invite our shareholders in person or virtually to ask questions. Before I do so, I just want to kind of reiterate that we had invited shareholders to submit questions in advance of the meeting with written responses to be provided. I can confirm that no questions were received in advance of that meeting. Thank you. There are no, fantastic. I would now like to open up the floor to any questions, given at this moment in time there are no virtual questions.
Okay, so I take it that there's no presentation?
No.
Okay, right. Okay, well, I've probably got three questions.
Sorry, I apologise. Before you ask your question, could you kindly state your name?
Oh, yes.
And whether you're a shareholder, proxy or corporate
Yes, Nick Steiner, private shareholder.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm fairly new to this company, and of course, then we had COVID, and then I find the price sort of collapsing, and that seems to be Mozambique mainly, but we'll leave that to one side. But it's a fascinating business plan, and something that is really interesting. And on page 9, you sort of the empowering paragraph. The sort of multicultural company, no room for discrimination. I'm just wondering how you manage to get this sort of huge differences to actually cooperate with each other and actually follow a similar strategy and culture that you have in the company. So I don't know whether you could just explain that.
Interesting question. I think an answer straight off it is that I am a Lebanese, Sierra Leonean, Scottish, married to a Swede.
That's lovely, isn't it?
So that already sets a template of the cultural, the kind of cultural vibe, which is very inclusive.
Yes.
which can take across all the colours and creeds that we have, including all the different religious and cultural differences, but harmonizing it, because the point of the way the company operates is an all for one and one for all, as opposed to any sort of hierarchy. Everybody is on first name basis. Everybody works across the board to lend a hand, regardless of in which position you're in and across. And we instilled this from day one, when the company started in Afghanistan, by hiring locally and integrating them into our international workforce to be on par. And we've continued ever since. Same with the integration of females, obviously having a chair and CEO and some senior management helps a lot. But after 20 years, I can say that we've managed to nail, we are 52 nationalities now, 52 nationalities operating across the board, and all in harmony, apart from some major arguments over football. But apart from that,
Well, that's presumably the males, is it?
These two.
Oh, right. Okay.
But to be fair, it's a challenge.
Yes.
Multiculturalism is a challenge.
Yes.
It's something you have to embrace. You have to have policies and procedures for it. And, there's some stringent ways of dealing with conflict resolution within the company as well. So
Yes.
how you report incidences. We were very quickly we had an independent whistleblowing function as well to make sure that these points can be made, even when you feel that you maybe can't make them. I think it's a thing that you have to work on daily, and we're happy to do it. We always champion it.
So how does the independent whistleblowing work? When it sort of something goes wrong, who do they ring or email? Or
so they can email, they can phone. There's posters in all our locations with the QR code. It's very, very accessible. It goes to an independent function, and then they report back to our compliance officer, who is then first tasked to convene a compliance group to investigate if there is cause, if there is accuracy, and then what is the concerns, and then do a complete investigation of the whole situation. They have to report back to the independent monitoring body, and then eventually, if there is a cause and if it leads to any further consequences, then report it to the board.
Oh, that's good. And how many times a year do you actually get whistleblowing where we have sort of, shall we say, serious problems rather than simple ones?
Serious problems, very rarely.
Really?
A lot of it is an interpretational issue that we see. Many times you do get complaints through it that is more of a character of comfortable, if they might not like something in the, a dining facility or, work hours or something like this. These are then brought to our attention, which is great because they flush out these issues, right, that are normally culturally based, right? And then we can sit down, we have these work groups facilitated by a compliance manager, sometimes by the sustainability manager, always with the country manager or senior management board as well. And then we flush out the issues and discuss and come up with a solution how to do it better.
Oh, that's encouraging. Yes.
Yeah. I think the ethos in the company that Soraya and I have learned from the UN as well is if anyone complains, it means that you care.
Yes. That's good. Second question. Reading your case study on Somalia,
what page are you on?
I'm on page 15. Okay, have you read it? It looks pretty impressive that you were sort of working with sort of a lot of unskilled people because of the circumstances of COVID and things like that. And over the course of 2 years, you developed hundreds of hours of video, online training and things like that. Again, that seems exceptional work, really good. Keeping new staff motivated and really, you say, yes, you're proud of that large team. So how has that changed your approach to tasks that you do? Because presumably that's been a huge learning exercise. And how do you actually incorporate that into the lower managements to do much the same sort of thing.
And again, I'll pass to Lisa. I mean, if you're looking at the DNA
For a
of
last-
RA,
Yes.
I mean, this, you are looking at the personification of who they are. So you Lars.
So that's a mountain of work to be undertaken
Yes.
now, right? So obviously not all of the video materials is usable across the board. Very much a lot of it was specific to the tasks that we've done for the Ministry of Defence in this particular place. A lot of it is sensitive because of the nature of the missions there. So we can't use, across the board. What we need to now do is like filter down what can we recreate in an environment that is actually usable across the board for the company. That requires a training methodology in the company that needs to change slightly, I think. We're looking at the new training manager, but it's a mammoth task to get it done. To do it specifically for an individual project, we've done in the past actually, not to the extent that this was, this is obviously the best case that we give as an example. Yeah, but we've done similar things actually remotely in Central African Republic as well.
Yes.
But it was difficult to reach certain locations in the speed that we needed with certain skill sets. So we trained rather than just send out people. Now the core of the company is what we have as a core in the company is that sometimes you need to bring in the international staff to begin with. And then what we're trying to now do is to get the international staff to be aware from the beginning that you are coming in there to do this duty, but simultaneously hand over that capacity to a local national to be able to do it after. This is something we picked up from, our career in the United Nations. We were both involved in a project called Village Employment Rehabilitation Projects, both in Kosovo and then in Afghanistan. And this methodology behind it is pretty much the same. So how do you do it technically? Well, now we have to sift through the material we have, screen what can we use, what can we not use, what do we need to recreate, and then roll out that as a training mechanism. Mammoth task.
Oh, well, yes, well done.
I have a virtual question. You want to carry on, Claire?
I've got one more.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, right, okay. Your second case study, customer-led growth. I was sort of looking at this, and you've got Beirut and then South Korea, and I was sort of rather puzzled. What are you doing there? Then I noticed that you're planning US Embassy security in Lebanon, and in South Korea, it's the US Embassy compound. And then Diego Garcia, US Navy support facility. Well, this looks like much more stable sort of work, and something that you can sort of rely on to give fairly good margins and a good return that helps with the more risky stuff. So am I right, or how does this, we're on page 17, sorry.
Yeah.
The customer-led growth, what we're trying to explain here is that we've never advertised, we've never had to go and kind of solicit clients. It's always word of mouth, but more or less the same client, when they move, they request that we move along with them. So the UK MOD is a prime example, in that we did work for them in Somalia, and then they had a massive job training exercise in Oman, and they requested that we work that project for them in Oman. Even though we actually pointed out that Oman is actually quite an easy place to work, but they actually requested, and so we transferred and did the job for them in Oman. So we have certain clients that when they move to different countries, areas, the familiarity of the way we operate together and the speed and the fact that they can rely on us to deliver, they want us on board, even if it's outside our scope, even if the country is not difficult or any of that sort. It's a matter of thinking about it can either be a very complex project in a very simple place, or a very simple project in a very complex place. But it's the actual familiarity with the client that leads this development of growth, whereby we don't have to reinvent the wheel, because we know how they want the reporting, we know how they want their timelines, we know how they want the paperwork, we know how they want the invoicing, we know the HSE that they want. Whereas if they went to another contractor, they might waste 3 months just realigning, should I say, the people, the materials, just to be aligned takes time. And in a project that you're doing something very quickly and it's governmental orientated and there's a lot of scrutiny, you don't have the luxury of time of realignment of just what could be seen as simple bureaucracy, but it's the cogs of the engine. And if boxes don't align and they don't tick, our invoice might get rejected from the MOD, which we don't want, but that is it. So it's basically pushing along. Yes, they're more sustainable. We're moving into longer term contracts with actually, if you think a long-standing contract, the single time we worked for the MOD, which was now, it started 6 years ago, 7, we're still working for them. So it shows that it just develops as they get bigger projects, we get bigger projects, and we move along further down the line with them.
So does that give recruitment problems?
Oh, it can be challenging when they call you on a Friday for a Monday job, definitely. Trust me. So yes, it can, but we have a great team internally. We keep a roster of people that have worked for us and maybe gone back home to take time off or be with family. So as soon as we get the call, the HR team kind of delves through the right people, right place, right time, because sometimes it's down to how quickly can they get to that location. So yeah, you do have a lot of challenges with that, but bless Judy, who heads up that department, has been with us now 16 years. So she knows it inside and out, and just about everybody has Judy's number. So
Lovely. Okay. Right. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for very informative questions. They are very protective. Thank you very much. I'd like to kind of just answer a question virtually posted. It's relating to the recent cancellation of the LTIPs, and it's kind of basically kind of noting and requesting the fact that there is a concentration of 80% shareholding of the Nuffelts. And again, we would like to kind of reiterate that, you know, we are kind of very cognizant of the fact that there is such a concentration of kind of shareholding. And to reiterate, as REMCO, as led by Philip, that any LTIPs that are awarded are primarily done to incentivise and kind of incentivise staff, you know, to kind of stay where they are in terms of longevity, and to ensure that they kind of move towards growth. So, you know, there is any further any LTIPs that are awarded will be for the layers to kind of continue in terms of succession, in terms of executive and direct management below executive and executive, but not, of course, the kind of founders. Do you need to add anything
No,
more?
you did it all. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Any other questions? If there are no any other questions, and I believe someone will pipe in through a magic kind of thank you, but I would personally, on behalf of the entire board, would like to personally thank everybody for kind of tuning in. Thank you to Canaccord to kind of attend as well, and to yourself, sir, to kind of attend in person, and any remote shareholders. Over to you.
That's great. Thank you. Turn to the board. Thank you very much indeed for updating attendees this afternoon. Could I please ask those attendees online not to close this session, as we'll now automatically redirect you for the opportunity to provide your feedback in order that the management team can better understand your views and expectations. This will only take a few moments to complete, but I'm sure will be highly valued by the company. On behalf of the management team and the board of RA International Group PLC, would like to thank you for attending today's annual general meeting, and I wish you all a very pleasant afternoon.